Baby.
வெயிட் பண்றீங்க ஐயோ All the participants present today on this digital platform. I, Anika Banu, professor in the Department of Commerce and Management. On behalf of the management, principal, and faculty of Baldwin Women's Methodist College, I redeem it a pleasure to welcome you for the webinar themed Making the Most of the New Normal, organized by the Department of English in coordination with the Internal Assurance Cell of our college. At the outset, I would like to give a brief history of our college. Mr. John Baldwin, a pronounced visionary, having educated himself by working as a janitor and chopping wood, perceived and made education his mission. He founded the Baldwin Institute in New York in 1845 and the Baldwin High School in 1882. The Baldwin Girls' School was established in Bangalore in the year 1903 and continues to provide quality education to girls from varied parts of the globe. By the year 1990, the need was felt for the good higher secondary education for women. The PUC section was started and it was expanded with the addition of the degree section in 1995. The Baldwin Women's Methodist College is a unit of Baldwin Methodist Educational Society and is managed by Methodist Church in India. The degree section is affiliated to Bangalore University and has a permanent affiliation to Bangalore Central University. Now, I call upon Dr. Veda Surendra, Professor, HOD of Department of English, to welcome and introduce the resource person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anika. It is in the darkest hours that we discover our true strength. A very pleasant morning to one and all present with us today on this virtual platform. On behalf of the management, principal, faculty, and students of Baldwin Women's Methodist College, I, Dr. Veda Surendra, Head of Department of English, deem it a pleasure to welcome all the participants for the national webinar themed Making the Most of the New Normal. We at Baldwin's are humbled and delighted by the overwhelming response we received for this webinar. We have more than 900 participants joining us today from more than 20 Indian states, and from across the globe. We have participants joining us from London, New York, the Ivory Coast, Amsterdam, Canada, Vietnam, and many more. I render my heartfelt gratitude and highest appreciation to all the participants who are virtually present with us today for this national webinar. It's my privilege to welcome and introduce the speaker of the day, Ms. Shalini Neelkantan. Ms. Shalini holds an illustrious profile. In addition to her MBA degree, Ms. Shalini is a certified storyteller from IDE OU. She is also an alumni coach with IDE OU, helping global learners in the art of creating stories for business purposes. Ma'am is an accredited, strong interest inventory practitioner, a global career exploration instrument. She is also accredited as a coach and e-learning instruction designer from the Association of Talent Development. Ms. Shalini is a career counselor for students as an executive coach for working professionals with over 17 years of experience in the field of learning and development. She has conducted workshops for MNCs in the IT and health sectors. She has also worked with Genesis Software and SLK Software in the learning and development space. Ma'am, it's an absolute honor to have you online amidst us today. Thank you for acceding to our request to preside over as the resource person for today's national webinar. I humbly hand over the session to Ms. Shalini Neelkantan to shed light on today's discourse titled Making the Most of the New Normal. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Veda, and big thanks to the principal, the management, the faculty members, and the staff of Baldwin's Women's Methodist College for inviting me to conduct this particular webinar. And thanks to each one of you who made time to join the session. It just shows how important it is for us to try and figure out how are we to go through this particular time in our lives, and how is it relevant for us from both a personal and professional perspective. So what I'm going to be talking about over the next hour is really both from a personal and a professional perspective, something that is applicable to us today, and especially something that is applicable to students going through this time today in the future. Because what is happening today is going to have an impact on your life in the future, and you need to start preparing for that from now. During the course of my webinar, I might ask a few questions. Feel free to just put your answers over there. I'll just look through whatever my eyes fall on. I'll not be able to look at each response. Towards the end of the session, we will have a question and answer session, so you can feel free to ask me your questions then. Just very quickly, am I audible to everyone? If you can just type in a yes, if 2 or 3 of you all can just type in a yes, that would be good enough. Thank you. I'm seeing a yes over there. So I'm going to get started. I'm just going to share my presentation. Just give me a moment. Okay. So what I have for you here is what we titled as Making the Most of the New Normal. And so my question for you right now is, what is the new normal for you? So can I have a few responses? What is the new normal for you? So for some, it might be great. I'm seeing an online class over there. Yes, online class is a new normal. Anything else?
Wearing a mask.
Wearing a mask. Thank you for that. Great. There is virtual classes, virtual reality. I think for some, it is staying at home for most of the time and not being able to get out. Keeping distance. Yes. Adjusting to the new environment. True. What exactly is this new environment for you? The quarantine. True. Sanitizers, washing your hands for 20 seconds, washing your hands every now and then. Coping with teenagers at home. Yes. And for teenagers, it is coping at parents at home. Things is taking place, staying at home, and y'all are bang on when we are talking about this. That the new normal has been us having to do a lot more new things. Being more cautious, working from home. Thank you for your responses. That's really helpful. So let me go back to my slide again, and yeah. My next question for you, what I want to ask you is, how has this impacted you? What has the impact on you been because of the new normal? Great. Job insecurity is so true. Insecure feeling about job and health. More conscious about health. Again, I see jobs. It has made us more aware of what's happening around the world. Yet suddenly we are like, what is happening? A changed lifestyle, that's how it's impacted us. Yes. Rachna says she's taken it in a positive way, and that's good. Our priorities change. So true. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they said, I can't plan for more than 1 month. When I'm planning, things have become so uncertain that I'm planning, literally one day at a time. And this was a person who's planning a wedding 2 months from now. Mental and physical health, laziness, more curiosity for new things. Homeschooling, thank you for those responses that are coming in. Change of plans and more time to reflect. And yes, great if there is some reflection. Prachita says something very important when she says anxiety. Some of the things that I'm going to stress upon. And in fact, a lot of what you're mentioning is something that's going to be covered in and through what I'm going to be talking about today. What I'm going to be talking about today is definitely going to be a little different perhaps from what you expect. So definitely more stress. So think about this. Is this the first time in life that you are encountering something called as a new normal? And when you look back at it, not really, because all of our life has been at some point or another having new normal around us. For example, when you move from 10th standard to your 11th and 12th, that's a new normal. When you 12th standard to your degree courses, that is a new normal. When you start working, that's a new normal. When you take a new job, that's a new normal. When you very sadly lose somebody in your family, getting accustomed to that is a new normal. So what makes this new normal different from all the other new normals that have happened in our lives? So how is our present new normal different? Because all of you here at some point in time have gone through new normals. So what makes this new normal different? So one of the things that came to my mind when I was thinking about what makes this new normal different is that this new normal is about affecting everybody simultaneously. It is not just about me and my family. Every other new normal is about me and my family. This new normal has affected with COVID everyone, directly or indirectly. It has together caused us to look at insecurities, anxieties, the depressions that we talk about, the fears that we are encountering. And that's what makes this new normal so different. And we ask ourselves, how are we to respond in this context of this new normal? And I want you to look at this picture. And what strikes you about this picture? Can you tell me what strikes you about this picture? You can just type in your responses.
Excuse me, ma'am. You have to share your screen.
Oh, it's not sharing with you?
Yes.
Okay. So if you see, can you see the screen right now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now? Can you see it now?
Not yet, ma'am.
No.
Okay, give me a moment.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
So if you see the picture on the screen, okay, so I have a problem is if I have my screen on, I really cannot see the responses that you're giving. So I'm just going to go with just talking a bit, but you all can continue to type in your responses. I'll have a look at that in a bit. One of the things that you see in this picture is that there's this parched land, okay, that's really broken, that nothing is growing on, and yet you see that flowers are blossoming where possible. And this is what is called as resilience. When you are in a very difficult environment, when you are going through a high amount of difficulty, it calls for you to respond to it in a way that still allows you to grow. And a number of us are looking at this time and we are saying, this too shall pass. And that is one of the most common things that I have heard. Oh, we are having this lockdown, we are having the quarantine, we are having, this thing to wear a mask and go out and all of that. We can't go to college. Sometime it's all going to change. And so one of the ways we take solace and we take hope is that we are saying, this too shall pass. Which is good, which is not bad. But you can't just wait and do nothing waiting for this too shall pass. I want you to think about storms. When you go through a storm, and I'm really talking about the physical storm, the rain and the wind, we know that the storm will pass. But none of you stand in the midst of the storm and wait for it to pass. You do something about it. You run for shelter. You take family members and you run for shelter. You don't go to a beach in the storm. You stay inside during the storm. So you are taking care and you're doing whatever is cautious and whatever is the right thing to do. And that's what matters when you are in the storm. And this entire COVID season is like a calm storm. For those of you who have been affected by it and your family members are affected by it, it's been more personal. My heart goes out to you. And it is perhaps a far more stronger storm. For those of y'all who have lost jobs or are not finding jobs, it is also a stressful situation. For those of you who are just in college saying, okay, we just finished, let's see what happens, it is a storm in its own way. And what matters is you can't just wait. You can't wait for a job to come. You can't wait for something to happen. You need to do something about it. And we're going to be looking at what can we do during a storm crisis like this, where we are really not used to something like this. Asked to sit at home, not really do much. We don't know what's going to happen next. So many things depend upon what authorities will decide. And so we normally have two responses. One is, I've heard a lot of people sulk. They feel terrible and they are grumbling, oh, I don't like this COVID. I don't know if you come under this category. I don't like sitting at home and doing nothing. I don't like not going to college. I don't like, just being here and doing nothing. And that is really called sulking. And if you see, sulking gets you nowhere. You just become a miserable person inside out and you make everybody else around you miserable. Now, when I started off talking about this session, I said I'm going to talk about it both from a present perspective and from a future perspective. From a future perspective, I want you to look at the people you are becoming. When you are in your teens and when you are in your 20s, you are becoming a certain kind of person. Your personality is developing. You are becoming a professional, whichever field you are going to go in. Sulking people don't make good professionals. Tomorrow, if you want to think of being in a leadership position, if you have sulked in a time like this, it's really not going to bring out the best person in you, even 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years from now. And that's what I want you to look at. How are you dealing with COVID in such a way that builds your personality positively? And so our second response, which I'm going to spend some time talking about, is, are we thriving? What do we mean by thriving? Thriving is really doing well in a difficult circumstance like now. And it is not easy to thrive. It's not like we say, you think positively and you will thrive. No. we have to do a few things. And I'm going to use Thrive as an abbreviation with which you can try and remember these things and see whether you're doing it in your life. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of Thrive is, I'm going to ask you that in your own lives to think about how you are responding to people and situations. Think about your attitude and behavior towards your family members, towards your siblings, towards your faculty members during this COVID season. Has it been positive or has it been negative? Very often when I talk about this, people often come back and they are telling me that, oh, my family members do not have a right attitude, or my faculty members or my siblings don't have the right attitude. But my question to you is, keep that aside. That might be true. But keep that aside and ask yourself, what do I think about my responses, my attitude, my behavior towards people and situations? A lot of youngsters I meet want to be leaders tomorrow. You don't become a leader tomorrow without building leadership skills today. I honestly believe leaders are not born, they are made. Okay, I have seen that happen. So if you are somebody who does not have leadership skills today, you don't have to worry because leadership skills can be built. But if you don't use times like this to build your leadership skills, you will never be made into a leader. And if we don't have right responses towards our own family, towards our own circle of friends, tomorrow when you have a set of employees who you are managing, tomorrow when you go out and you try to do your thing professionally, you are not going to be very successful as a leader. You might be technically very successful. You might be very good functionally at what you're doing. If you're happy with that, fine. But honestly, there's more to life than just being functionally good at something. So think about how you are responding to people and situations in your life. The second, which is H for the Thrive, is ask and give help. And some of you have mentioned things like anxiety and stress and depression, and this is so important. This happens at different levels, It's not just at a broader level of being a volunteer. Take something very simple as asking a family member at home how you can help them. Secondly, even your ability to ask for help. If you are stressed out, if you are anxious, if you are scared, if you are unsure about the future, if you are going through a job insecurity, if you have lost a job, ask somebody for help in terms of, I need to talk about this. See, we are people who need to talk. We cannot resolve an issue by just keeping it to ourselves. If you need a job, you need to go out and you need to ask people for a job. Today, the environment allows it. It is really, really hard. But it is important to ask for help, especially in terms of talking to people. You don't need to go to a counselor, you don't need to go to a psychologist, you don't need to go to a coach. It's really good to do those things. But if you have any inhibitions towards that, just tell a friend, I want to talk to you about this. Secondly, just as you need to talk to others, others need to talk as well. Be willing to give help. Giving help is not about, okay, you want money, you want food. Those are different ways of doing it. Those are charity. But people around us immediately require help. How can we help them? Like I said earlier, can you help your own family members, your own siblings at home? Can you go out and can you ask people? I remember hearing this very interesting story when I was a kid. I don't know if anybody here has read Enid Blyton, but it was from there. And it was about a small boy. He must have been around 9-10 years old. And he was really, really bad in his studies. And he was always failing in all his exams. He was no good at sports. He couldn't sing. He couldn't draw. And he was literally good for nothing. And thankfully, he had parents who were very encouraging, who saw that he put in a lot of effort in everything that he did, but yet was going nowhere. And so one day his mother sat with him and she said, listen, Rahul, what I see is that you are putting in effort and your effort is not paying off, and it's okay, just continue to put your effort there. But she also tells him, Rahul, see, one thing I noticed is you really like helping people. I see when your friends are crying, sometimes you don't do anything but you sit with them and you hold them. When, some elderly person in the neighborhood requires for help, you go, you run and you help them out. And she was like, maybe that's what you're really good at. Why don't you go and do a little bit more of that? And Rahul really went out of his way and started doing more and more in his neighborhood. He helped the elderly people get groceries. He helped smaller kids with their homework. When he could babysit his own smaller siblings, he did that. And the neighborhood society realized that Rahul was making such a big difference for them. And one day, they approached the principal of the school and they said, listen, we wanted to give this boy an award because he has really made such a big difference. Nobody told Rahul this, but on the prize day, when Rahul's name was never called out, Rahul went to school because he had to. When he was leaving, thinking once again, I'm not going to get anything, Rahul's name was called out and the principal announced that this is the first time we are giving this award and we created an award for this because nobody has done this thing earlier. And all Rahul has done is Rahul has helped people, and the people have realized this. And that was a turning point for Rahul to realize that you can make a difference in the lives of people by giving help. When I was your age, I always thought I needed to be really talented, and I'm talking about when I was in my late teens, that you need to be really talented to do something, to make a difference. And I have now realized, no, you don't need to be talented. You need to do good with what God has given you at this stage in your life. Whatever little you have, use that. Whatever your space is, do the little you can there, it will grow. Right? Now, I'm talking to you, like I said, both today and tomorrow. I want you to think about the kind of person asking and giving help makes you. Tomorrow, when you go for an interview, you have become a stronger person. You have built your personality when you have given help. You can actually give examples and illustrations when you've given help. You can actually say that your confidence grows, your communication skill grows, your presentation skills grows, your team building skill grows. So many skills grow when you're giving help. A lot of people are still saying we will give help, but they did not ask for help. One of the biggest issues in the corporate today is our inability to ask each other for help. We call this ego. And when ego comes in the way, you invariably will falter in performance. I'm also a performance coach, so I can tell you that. It is something that I have seen that when individuals go out and ask for help, they do much better. And the moment you ask for help, you can make sure somebody else will feel comfortable enough with you to ask for help. So use this opportunity to really both ask and give help. The third thing that I want to talk to you about is to resolve issues. In the context of a professional life, very often you hear about conflict management. What we don't talk about enough is conflicts happen right from the beginning of our lives. It happens in families, it happens among friends, and then it happens at workplace. We try to resolve conflicts at the workplace without resolving personal conflicts. During the time of COVID, I think what's happened is the new normal has affected everybody. It's made us more moody. We are staying with family members day in, day out when we are not really used to it. We are getting on each other's nerves to a large extent sometimes. Like somebody said earlier, getting used to teenagers being at home is really, really difficult. Teenagers being with parents at home is really difficult. And all you need to do sometimes, and in most cases, I do know that there are trouble situations, there are forms of abuse and violence, and it's very different in those cases. But if your case is not that, if it's more of relationships and it's more of getting on each other's nerves, you should try to resolve issues. Because if you start building grudges, your personality will be one where you build a grudge, where you always hold something against somebody else. You don't want to do that. You want to be a person who gets along with everybody as far as possible. You don't have to be everybody's best friend, but to be able to get along with everyone else is actually a good leadership skill. And that happens when you resolve issues. How do you resolve issues? Very simple once again, talk about it. This relates to the first point I spoke to you about. If you realize that your responses towards anybody, be it family, friends, faculty members, is wrong, ask yourself, what is the issue? What is bothering you? See if you can do something about it by yourself. If not, see whether there is a need for you and the other person to actually have a conversation. Go ahead and have that conversation and see if that makes a difference or not. You resolve issues and then you be a person of integrity. You know, in the entire set of values we talk about, integrity is the most important because integrity covers every value. What is integrity? Integrity is a combination of sincerity, honesty, transparency, a sense of openness. Everything literally comes under integrity. Every good value comes under integrity. And so often when I have taken interviews, I hear I'm a very, I'm a person with strong integrity. If I ask you, are you a person with strong integrity, you're going to answer yes. Let me warn you that integrity is a day-to-day basis. Integrity is, are you being true? When you have an online class, if you log in, and then afterwards you're browsing on your phone or you're browsing on your internet when your faculty is taking a class, honestly, that is not integrity. When you are, copying in an exam, when you are copying somebody else's assignment that is supposed to be yours, that is not integrity. If you don't have that integrity today, you can change and you can start being more of an integrity-based person. Because tomorrow, what is needed in an organization is not just people who are very good. It is people with a high sense of integrity who can be trusted. Honestly, and this is one thing that I say very often. Look at the number of people who are churning out with MBAs, MComs, MSAs, different the doctors, the engineers who are coming out. You can find hundreds of people who are very, very, very good at what they do. Okay? How do you stand out? How do you make a difference? You make a difference by the values. Values make you stand out, not your skills alone. And if this is one value that you build, people will start noticing you. If you don't have this value, people will use you. Let me assure you that. If you are somebody who lies, people will use you when they say, "Again, tell us a lie, it makes this happen." But when it comes to growing an organization, that leadership role will eventually be given to somebody who is a person of integrity. Now you might question this and you might say, "Okay, there are people who are in the leadership role who are not full of integrity. We know that." But look at the consequence. Look at the consequence of Vijay Mallya. Look at the consequence of Narendra Modi. Look at the consequence of the former CEO of Infosys. Each one of them had a fall. Okay? And even if somebody lacks integrity and they are on the top, doesn't mean that you are a person who wants to lack integrity and be at the top. How does a COVID situation help you be more of a person with integrity? Look at it. I think your virtual classes is your answer to that. Your virtual classes will help you really answer to that. How you support your faculty members for whom this is a new normal is really important. It is not easy. I know right now I do a lot of my sessions on Zoom. It's literally one of the first sessions I'm doing on Google Meet, and I'm struggling because I can't access chat and my screen together. Maybe I'm not used to it. I'm more familiar with Zoom. It helps so much to have somebody who understands that and who helps you through it, rather than somebody who's constantly complaining, or look at how she's doing the session, look at the way it's not being done the way it should. None of us have it perfect during this time. And each of us, and you will see how it links back to helping one another. over here. Moving from integrity to something very different. And I was struggling with a V. And what I really mean by valiant over here is actually being brave. COVID has opened up a lot of uncertainties for us, a lot of fears. Let's admit that. Being valiant is not saying, okay, I'm a brave person. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to, keep social distance. I'm just going to do whatever I want. That is stupidity. That is not being valiant. That's not being brave. But being valiant is using the circumstances to still do the things that are needed to. Do not let fear overcome you. Now, the reason I have Rosa Parks here, she was the one who was a big champion of the civil rights movement. One of the things that she did was when she was sitting in the seats that were offered to the African Americans, and a white person asked her to get up, she refused to get up. That was a part of the civil rights movement that was taking place at that point in time. It took a lot of courage for young Rosa Parks to actually take a stand at that point in time. Now, today, you might not be called to take a stand such as what Rosa Parks is doing. But as you grow into being an adult, there will be moments you need to make a stand. That does not happen overnight. You don't get bravery overnight. You have to start overcoming your fears now, listing out what your fears are, and slowly and steadily trying to overcome them. I can tell you something very basic, and I take this example very often, is that I was not I could never talk in front of public. I had this huge public speaking fear. And just because I had that fear and I wanted to get over it, I kept doing it again and again and again. Now, one of the things I did not realize along with this God-given ability to speak was that the ability to take a stand and speak up when I need to speak up was also getting built in me. So today, when I have a point of view, I don't have to fight it out. I don't have to get violent, but I can express my point of view, and I can also accept another person's point of view, which is different from mine. And that calls for being valiant and being brave. All of this, when you put it together, brings me to something very important that is in our lives today and in the corporate tomorrow, is something that we call emotional intelligence. Talking about emotional intelligence is a bit out of the scope for the session. So I'm just going to tell you very quickly about the 4 major elements of emotional intelligence. You need to be self-aware. You need to be able to answer, what is it I'm doing right? What is it I'm doing wrong? A bit of, especially the first part, thinking about how you respond, falls under this category. The more self-aware you are, the more you can do something about it. If you say there is nothing wrong with me, the way I'm responding to situations is fine, I'm happy doing whatever I want, nobody needs my help, that is a lack of self-awareness and social awareness, actually. So as far as possible, start focusing on self-awareness. As you get more self-aware, you will realize that you need to manage yourself. Managing self involves making corrections to what we're doing. So if I'm not responding to people in a manner that is respectful, I start practicing that. If I am somebody who lacks integrity, I start integrity. I won't get the whole thing in one day. I start being, more of an integrity-based person little by little every day. I start looking at the question on whoever is So we talk about
Participants, kindly mute the audio and video of your device. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
So when you talk about social awareness, it's being sensitive to people around you. When I spoke about giving help, when I spoke about resolving issues, when I speak about integrity, when I talk about being valiant, all of it is about social awareness. Realize that the world is not just about us. And this is what I love about what COVID has done for us. We have realized that we don't need to be keeping safe only for ourselves. I can be asymptomatic and I can infect somebody else. Therefore, I need to be cautious for somebody else. The world is not about ourselves. The world is about other people, and that is social awareness. And the fourth is relationship management. Learn to manage your personal relationships. When you grow into a professional setup, you will manage your professional relationships better. Yes, not every relationship is perfect. Every relationship will have its ups and downs. And therefore, you go back to resolving conflicts. Therefore, you go back to looking at how am I responding? How am I acting? What am I doing? You go back to self-awareness. All of this happens constantly in our lives. And so the beauty of emotional intelligence is this, that I can be a highly emotional intelligent person today, and I can be a person very low on emotional intelligence next month. This is not the case of our IQ. We have the same IQ all through. But emotional intelligence is about the effort we put in to know ourselves, to know others, and to do something about it. So a quick gist on Thrive is think about how you are responding to people and situations. Ask for help when you need it. There's nothing wrong in that. Give help. It will help you grow. Focus on resolving issues. Build that skill. It's called a very strong soft skill. Build the value of integrity in you. Learn to be brave. It comes gradually. It's not overnight. Just talking in front of people saying, I have nothing to fear is the most false statement that we can make, that I'm not afraid of anything. And finally, work towards developing your emotional intelligence. And so as I bring this to a close, I would encourage you to live, to enjoy the moment, to create happy COVID stories. So this will end. We know that, like I said in the beginning, this too shall pass. Two things will happen. Either we will have a vaccine that ensures that we don't have to worry about COVID anymore, or we will learn to function in this new normal to such an extent that it becomes a normal and we are not thinking about it. It's going to happen. But what kind of people is this making us? What can we tell, our nieces, our nephews, our children, our grandchildren, when the time comes, about the kind of people it's made us? We've heard of the Great Depression. We've heard about the Indian War of Independence. We've heard the stories from our grandparents. We saw the struggles that they go through, and we saw the people that they became. And there's so much that we admire in them. Become people you can be admired of as you go through this challenge. Don't sit in a storm and do nothing. Do what you are supposed to. Do the right thing. And so with that, I come to an end of this presentation, and I'm going to open up for any questions. If you can share it on chat, and I'll be happy to answer it with concerns the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. That was indeed an insightful discourse.
Thank you.
When at times a light goes out and when it is rekindled by a spark from another person, then each one of us must pause to thank with gratitude of those who helped ignite the flame in us. So thank you, ma'am, for rekindling the flame of hope in us at bleak times of uncertainty. It's now time to take questions. Dear participants, please note that only a few queries will be taken up now. The remaining questions will be addressed by the resource person later, and the response will be mailed to you in due course of time. Ma'am, we have selected a few questions posted by the participants in the chat box. The first question is by Haneet Kaur. She asks, is the new normal helpful or not for students?
A great question. And, the person who's asked it, I'm just going to ask you to think about it if it were an interview question. If your interviewer asked you the question, is the new normal helpful or not? And honestly, as much as we would like to avoid this new normal, I think it has given us a kind of a context in which to deal with more difficult circumstances in the future. I would definitely say personally, it is helpful. It's taught us to care about other people, to realize that life is very uncertain and we cannot take things for granted. And so from those aspects, I would say that it is helpful. It is not the perfect situation, but yes, it is helpful.
Yes. Definitely, ma'am. Thank you. The next query is from Hema Prabha, who asks, what are the tips to overcome fear when asked to speak in public? The same query is asked by Moirangthem Solomon, who asks, how can one increase confidence for public speaking for the first time?
Okay. Since I've been there, but this is outside the scope of the session, all I'm going to say is do it. You know, there is no way that you can build confidence in public speaking without standing there in front of a group and talking. It's only when you go in front of a group and you talk, and then you realize what is it you're doing wrong, then you go the next time, you correct that, then again you evaluate, what can I do better? Come back, go back. You have to do it a couple of times. And that's how you build confidence in public speaking. You cannot do that before a session. You cannot do that anytime. You just need to be there standing in front of the crowd and talking, and that's how it builds it.
Yes, exactly. The next question is by Rahul Kumar, who asks how to cope with the repercussions of COVID-19.
That really depends upon what the repercussions are that you're asking. Rahul, is it?
Yes, Rahul.
Yeah, so Rahul, each repercussion is different. If, for example, if you have somebody who is infected with COVID, it is different. If you have somebody who's lost a job, it's different. So, really, if you give more specifics about that question, I would be able to answer that more specifically. But all I would say is try and look at the most positive response to that repercussion. Don't allow it to get you down. You need to look at it and see how you can get over it positively. If you need help, talk to somebody. That's what I would encourage you to do.
Yes, ma'am. And the last question is asked by Prajita Srijit. She asks, how can we manage our emotions?
A good question once again. If you were able to observe the block that I shared, one way in which you manage your emotions is being aware of it. What emotions you're going through when. So a good way to do this is actually to journal. To journal either when you go through that emotion or maybe at the end of day, beginning of day, set apart some time to talk about what is triggering that emotion and why you're going through that emotion, what is happening in you, and what are your responses. Once you do that, you will be able to reflect and you will be able to identify what is it that would perhaps help you to respond better. Once again, like I've said earlier, when you go through an emotional crisis, just talking to somebody really, really helps. So talk to people, and by that I mean trusted people, not just to anybody, trusted people, and that will move you towards managing your emotions better. Journaling is something that I really encourage because it helps you to keep track of your emotions and your behaviors, and it helps you to reflect better.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful discourse. And I thank you once again, ma'am, on behalf of our principal, faculty, students, and participants. Ma'am, I render my profound gratitude to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Participants, we have come to the end of the session. Before we conclude, I request Professor Hepzibah, coordinator of IQAC, to propose the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to all present here on this virtual platform. I, Hepzibah, IQAC coordinator of Baldwin Women's Methodist College, deem it a privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this webinar happen. On behalf of the management, principal, staff of Baldwin Women's Methodist College, first of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to God Almighty. for making today's webinar a resounding success. With his blessings and grace, we are able to conduct this webinar. I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our resource person, Ms. Shalini Neelakantan, who spared her time from her busy schedule to share with us on this interactive virtual platform. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us to face and thrive in this uncertain future. With the acronym Think, Help, Resolve, Integrity, Valiant, and Emotional Intelligence. Thank you, Ms. Shalini Neelakantan. A webinar like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye view for details. It requires planning, and also it is backed up by a team of very proactive and dedicated staff of our college, who are well versed in their work, under the eminent leadership of our principal, Mrs. Lydia P. Samuel, who guides and directs our endeavors. I am short of words for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. A special word of thanks to our computer department, Ms. Lakshmi, Ms. Shweta, Ms. Vasagi, and Mr. Avinash for the technical support for all our webinars. Thank you all, dear participants, for participating, and we would like to wish all of you a happy and a healthy week ahead. Stay home and stay safe.
Participants, please fill the feedback form posted in the chat box to receive your certificates. We shall also send the feedback form to all the participants through mail. I request the participants not to worry. Each one of you will receive the certificates by filling the feedback form through chat box or through your personal mailbox. The certificates will reach you in 3 days' time, as more than 700 certificates are to be generated. Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy.